All right, we are live here. My name is Jamie J. I am the founder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance, and today we're going to be helping you stop the bottleneck in your business because we're going to be talking with a good friend of mine, unbelievable man, human being, Dave Sanderson. I'm really excited to talk to you about that. So when we get back from the intro here, we'll go ahead and tell you a little bit more about why he's going to help you stop the bottleneck in your business and in life. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 38 seconds. Hello, it's Jamie J. I am live with Bottleneck. This is Live with Bottleneck. I am Jamie J. I'm the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance. This is not why we're here today, though. We're here to help you stop the bottleneck in your business and in your life by talking with Dave Sanderson, who's the president of Dave Sanderson Speaks International. Turning turmoil into triumph is going to be what we're talking about today. And why, oh, why is Dave someone that can help you stop the bottleneck? Let me share a couple things with you. To say that we are living in unprecedented times is a gigantic understatement. And Dave survived one of those moments in history. He was one of 155 people who faced a real plane crash called The Miracle on the Hudson. You've probably seen the movie with Tom Hanks, and Dave was actually in that movie, I believe. Dave has appeared on Fox, CBS, CTV, Global TV, News Talk 1010, has been featured in publications such as Success Magazine, Entrepreneur, and AARP. Dave has helped the American Red Cross raise over $14.7 million. And besides his work in sales, he's a speaker, mentor, and trainer. Dave delivers workshops on servant leadership and increasing personal performance in challenging times. He is a highly sought after podcast guest and author of the best-selling books, Moments Matter and God Gives You the Lesson When You Are Ready. So without any further ado, please allow me to welcome Dave Sanderson. How are you, sir?
Jamie, how are you today?
I'm pumped. I'm so excited to chat with you. You and I have been friends for a couple years now, and I'm just so blessed to be able to call you a friend, and then to have you here and share your wisdom. I actually went to one of your talks when you visited here in beautiful Springfield, Missouri, and was just blown away. And the entire audience was blown away by your story. You have a great storytelling. You just know how to share the stories and make it interesting.
Well, thank you, Jamie. Yeah, I was number one. I'm really honored to be back with you. It's great. I haven't seen you for a while, so it's tremendous seeing you again. And yes, I love that. We talked about Springfield. I love that part of the country. That central United States part where people are just down to earth. And yeah, that was quite an event. We had over 500 people, and I was very honored to be able to share my story in that part of Missouri. So thank you again for having me today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wonder, for those people that may be watching now or in the future, by the way, if you have a question or comment for Dave, please ask away. If you're watching this as a replay, because we're live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube right now, ask your questions. I'd be happy to forward them to Dave and share them on the screens here for you. If you're seeing this afterwards, let me know. I'll make sure that Dave gets those questions so that he can reach out to you and answer your questions. That being said, Dave, I wonder if you could give us a little background on you. I kind of know a little bit about it and maybe what you're up to now.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So as you know, but I'll just give you some background. I had 35 years in sales and sales management experience. That's what I was doing that day on January 15, 2009, coming back from a 3-day business trip. And so as usual, I don't know, I'm sure some other people travel. I try to get home as quickly as I can. We're on the road so much, not as much over the last year, obviously, but when we're on the road so much, you just want to get home. And that's what happened. I got an earlier flight, so I was going to surprise my family. And then all of a sudden I'm involved in a situation where I don't think anybody would ever want to be involved with. and you suddenly find out sort of what your life is all about, and then your life's sort of going to take a different direction if you can survive the plane crash. And as we know now, we did survive the plane crash, but part 2 is what I really talk about more succinctly, is about, yes, the pilot and the crew did a fabulous job that day, and I give them 100% of the credit. But it was getting out of the plane, the sinking plane in the Hudson River with 36-degree water at 11-degree temperature, which was, I think, was really what brought everybody together, and the teamwork and leadership and resourcefulness and all these things that we talk about in leadership really came together in that in those 10 to 20 minutes.
Now, you were the last person off the plane, is that right?
Last passenger off the plane.
Passenger.
Last person. Yeah.
Yeah. Last passenger. Because you were there making sure that everybody was okay and getting off and doing. I mean, it just speaks volume to your character. And in a high stress situation, a lot of times what we think we would do and what, we talk about what we would do may not necessarily happen, because panic comes in and other circumstances come in that you absolutely, you can't train for. You can't. Yep. Let's go practice a plane crashing here so I know how to handle it if it really happens.
Yeah, that's what's interesting, because I was honored to speak a few years ago at Delta. Love speaking for airlines, and they took me into their simulator where they simulate a plane crash, and the plane crash. But you can't really simulate it, right? They can basically show people how to get out and how to maneuver around when in that situation. But what I tell you, what's interesting is, I mean, you can do that all day long and you can get 100% success rate, but it's really when you're in the moment and the plane is crashing and you see your life pass before your eyes, and now you have to react and respond because you're already in that emotional state, right? So, yeah, they can. I think you're right. They can simulate it to a point, but then when push comes to shove and it's going down, and here we go, right? In the next 5 or 6 minutes, you're either going to be alive or dead, and it's all based on not only your decision-making process, but the other people's decision-making process. Likewise. So it's a matter of checking your ego at the door, and you learn that very quickly. It's not all about you. Yeah.
You could have, I guess, someone in the simulator with a bucket of, 34-degree water and pouring that on them and seeing how they react. I mean, it seems kind of ridiculous, but it's almost like, I mean, I couldn't even fathom. And it's, when I hop on a plane now, just because of your story, I actually do kind of pay attention. I used to never even pay attention to them.
Well, if I've done that, Jamie, I've succeeded, because my goal is to help people stay aware on planes, right? Stay aware, because you don't know when something's going to happen, man. I mean, you just never know. We heard that last 2 weeks ago in Denver, right? An engine exploded going out of Denver on the way to Hawaii.
I didn't even know that.
And United flight going out of Denver, headed to Hawaii, engine exploded over Western Colorado, right? And fortunately it happened there so they could turn around and get back to the airport. But you talk about a few hundred miles further into the ocean.
Oh, man.
So you never know when it's going to happen. That's why I'm glad at least you have heard my story enough to say, I think I'll read the brochure.
Yeah. Where is the
do that
device?
Yeah.
And they make us sound off with a verbal yes if we sit in the little, because I like the extra leg room. So I always try to find the exit.
You always want to check who's at that door. I tell people, I've had people removed from the door, and people look at me like, why would you do that? It's because I know they couldn't handle it. I mean, very candidly, I saw the impact of those two people who were on the doors that day in our plane, right? And I'll be very candid. If they weren't able to handle the door, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right? Now you got 2 exits out instead of 4 exits out. So
that's
right. I encourage people to watch who is at the door, and if they're not of age or cannot speak the language and understand, request somebody to change seats.
I love that. So speaking of this, there was some turmoil.
Yep.
Right. First of all, let me ask, how would you frame or define turmoil based on your experience?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I appreciate you asking that question, because I'll take this last year, because I think this last year was like a plane crash. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's because it's not only COVID, but you had the social justice questions. You had the election that just went on and on and on. People got so dug in, they couldn't even talk to their neighbors anymore. So I liken last year to that, because, in a plane crash, you don't know what's coming. All of a sudden it happens, and it's not your fault, but you have to deal with it. And that's what happened last year. COVID was nobody's fault. It happened, right? But you got to deal with it. And you got to deal with circumstances that you've never had to deal with before. So how do you deal with it, right? So I should really share with people, and one that was great about the way you sort of let in is about the bottleneck. And I was thinking about that before I got on, because I just wrote a blog about stuck in the doorway. Because there's a picture of me that was shown for the first time on Good Morning America, and I didn't even know it was taken, of me halfway out the door, halfway in the door, 36-degree water. I was for 7 minutes, and I was stuck in the doorway. And that's where a lot of people right now, if you're in a bottleneck, or people last year look at that, last year's a bottleneck, you're halfway in, halfway out. Are you going to go back in and try to live the life you had, or are you going to go out and try to make a new life out for yourself? And I call it a vision for an alternative future, right? I mean, you got to have that vision, because now the future, the things are changing so quickly. I mean, it's so dynamic right now. If you're not able, agile, be able to make decisions, you're going to be, you will have a bottleneck. You will get stuck in the doorway. And if you're stuck, you're not moving. And if you're moving, it's a dangerous situation.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's either stay there, and if you stay there, you're dead.
That's right. Or if you move out, there's a risk.
There's a risk, and it's scary.
It's scary, but you know what? You know, this country was founded not because a lot of people got scared, because they were scared. You know, they founded this country. You know, they were going to be hung, right? So sometimes you got to stick your neck out, right, and get out of that bottleneck, or get out of that doorway.
I love that. So that is kind of your definition of turmoil. How do you turn that turmoil into triumph? And I think you were kind of leading in that direction when you said that, but you know, and maybe you can define triumph. Is triumph something that you achieve and then you're done, or is triumph more like a vision that you're trying to aspire to get done, but get you on the right path?
Great question. I think everybody's got a different definition. To me, it's always something I'm aspiring to. You know, and I always set, you know, short-term and medium and long-range goals. So, you know, I may have a short-term goal, and that might be a triumph for me today, but my bigger triumph right now, I mean, my number one triumph is to teach what my mentor taught me to 1 million people in 10 years. That's once I achieve that, I have triumphed, my big triumph. But that's not going to happen overnight. So I need to have small triumphs. So, you know, there's a lot of ways to achieve that. And one, you know, and that's why I talk about in my new talk. Is I did this initially in my TED Talk, Jamie, as you know, about post-traumatic growth syndrome. I shared a couple strategies, but now I share a lot of different strategies, because, you know, there's not one thing works for everybody, or they may not ingrain themselves. So, you know, I tell me the first thing right now is about meaning. The meaning you attach to something produces the emotion of your life, and emotion is your life. So whatever meaning you're attaching to COVID, you know, some people attach to COVID, oh my God, it's the end of the world.
This sucks,
right? Some people attach, you know, this give me a new opportunity. Now, how can I reconfigure my business? And so it depends on the meaning. So whatever meaning you have is going to produce emotion, whatever it is. So the first thing I tell people, if you want to turn any turmoils you have, whether it's a health situation, whether it's a business situation, what does this mean? And I had a couple of things happen this last week where candidly, I attached a negative meaning to it, and I went negative until I ask a better question. So, okay, how could I turn this around and not only impact myself, but add value to somebody else? And all of a sudden I came up with 2 or 3 ideas, and all of a sudden I'm back in the game. So all about, you know, the question you ask yourself and what meaning you attach. That's the first thing I do when I talk to people and coach people on how to turn their turmoil into triumph.
I love that. And you know what? We're human beings. So if something negative comes in and we say it, or we observe something and kind of elaborate on that, we're human beings. We may say something, but I think what I just picked up on what you said, what was really key to that is that you realized that there was something negative that you put out into the world. And in order to kind of, I don't know if compensate's the right word, but adjust the way that came out, it helped you feel better if you did something positive to counteract that negativity.
Well, yeah, and part of personal leadership, and this is one in my last talk, I still talk about it. There's 2 things about personal leadership, right? Number one, you got to be able to make decisions, and to live with the decisions. But second thing is the ability to have resourcefulness, and that's what I use. That I tell people that's what happened to me on the plane that day. I got very resourceful. That was a key skill. And candidly, after talking to a lot of people and my mentors like Tony Robbins and Don Bard, who's my current mentor, we all agree that the key skill everybody needs right now is the ability to be resourceful. It's not about the resources you don't have. It's about how resourceful what you got. And so I tell people, if you want to get out of turmoil, how resourceful can you get? What's the different avenues? Also, and that's what I talk about. Given, for instance, on the plane, right? Initially, my thought process, and probably many others, I'm not going to speak for everybody, was you had the aisle. First thing is the aisle, because I kept saying aisle up out, until I saw people climbing over the seats, and people getting resourceful. I said, now instead of having one avenue out, there's 3 avenues out, right? And all of a sudden, I'm saying it's about resourcefulness, right? Someone got resourceful and opened everybody's eyes up open. And now you have a lot of different options to get something accomplished. And that's how, very candid, how I have always turned my turmoil into triumph. I've gotten resourceful. I've asked better questions, employed the resources and people that I know, because the older you get, and I just turned 60, JV.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. You realize that you don't have all the answers, right? You don't have all the answers. I've got a lot of answers. I don't have all of them.
I had all the answers when I was 16.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. When I was young, I was the smartest guy on the street, until my dad sort of pointed a couple of things out to me that I wasn't the smartest guy on the street. So I've got an intern right now who is probably I look at my team, Jamie, he's the smartest person on the team. He's 22 years old, but he doesn't have the wisdom, right? He doesn't have the street smarts. And the only way you get wisdom is time. It's time, right? And how do you do that? How do you get that? It's through patience. And that's what I talked about this week in my blog. Is one of the great lessons my mentor Bill taught me is about, you have the people with the most wisdom have time on their side. And they have the time on their side because they have patience. And knowing things may not happen today, but if you have patience and give it time, most of the time things will work out. And that's what that's part of the wisdom that we all get as older we get. And we talk about one of the things that we can do as you and me and older people, we can help our younger compress decades into days. Take my wisdom. I can teach you my wisdom, but you got to do something with it. You got to take action. You just can't sit on it.
I love it. And, part of that too is a lot of people want instant gratification, and sometimes it does take time to work out. But here's the thing: you can have patience and trust in yourself that you're going to be able to prevail or triumph, as you say. But you said mini goals, a little bit bigger goals, and then big goals. But we call that our mission, and our mission is what we accomplish on the daily objectives. Because we're afraid if we set a goal, we achieve that goal, then what? Now we're kind of like, I got to work real hard. I want to buy a house. You buy the house, then what? Well, I don't know, right?
So furnish now, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you gotta figure out. That's why we do daily objectives. Like, have we done something to put us one step closer to achieving what it is that we want to achieve? What is our ultimate vision? That aligns with those values. And so that's kind of been really big for me, because otherwise I would look at something way down the road and I'm like, oh man, I don't have the patience to wait that long. Instead, it's a good way for people like me that like that instant gratification to get little mini wins along the way to keep you going.
Well, see, what you're doing now, and I honor what you're doing, because you're providing a service. It's really about resourcefulness, because there's people like me out here, and we've had this conversation with people like me that, I've got so many objectives I've got going, so many goals I've got going. I'm just trying to manage it, right? I need resources around me to be able to keep not only my eye on the target, but be able to accomplish the task that candidly I don't have the best skill set for. That's why I have a team. And that's why what you offer in your virtual, resource services is, listen, there may be a time where I need someone just to knock out 10 hours of something. And I don't have the time or patience, right? Very candid. I just want to get it done. And I'm not the right guy for it. I do some things really, really well. There are a lot of things I don't do well. So what you offer is an opportunity. If people really get down to the nuts and bolts, is you're giving people the opportunity to be resourceful. And your big challenge is, how can you teach people how to be resourceful, right? Use the resources and use their resourcefulness in a way that's only going to add value to them, but add value to their clients. And that's why I love what you're doing. And we've tried a few times to figure out some strategies, because there are times when I need certain things, right? Yep. But I don't need somebody 40 hours a week. I might need somebody 10 hours for 2 weeks, right? That's it. So
Well, I like it. You know, there's the aisle and then there's the rows of seats. So
Yep.
you got to figure out and you start climbing over the seats. Hey, you're going to get there eventually because there may be a jam in the aisle, right?
That's right. There might be something someone might not be moving, right?
Yeah.
And you say, listen, I gotta get out. So I may have to take a different route. And by the way, dude, will you move? Right. And that's a resource. Like you just said, listen, I may need to get an Excel spreadsheet done in a very elegant way for a presentation for 1,000 people. Right. I don't have the patience to do it. I need somebody who has that skill set who can turn around in 2 days. Right.
Yeah.
That's what the service you offer. That's why you talk about bottlenecks. Those are the bottlenecks people like me get. Right. I mean, I'm pretty good at when it comes to sales, right? I can find, if I find an opportunity to be able to add value to somebody, I'm pretty good at explaining why I can. Then you have to execute, and I execute, but then there's all these things around the execution that Canley need help with.
Where you need to get resourceful.
I gotta get resourceful. Gotta get those bottlenecks out of the way. I gotta get out of the stuck door, as I say.
I love it.
Right?
I love it. So what do you have coming up? Like, what is the big thing for you? I mean, you've been in a plane wreck.
Yep.
You were in the movie, right? With Captain Sully.
Very, very, very small part. Yes.
Yes, but still, that's awesome.
Yep.
You've been on all kinds of different talk shows. You work for major corporations. You go and speak hundreds of times. You've spoken.
Yep.
1,000? Have you hit 1,000 yet?
1,800 as of beginning of COVID.
Yeah, blessed. I mean, and you still have more to give. That's what it just blows me away. So, and you're an author.
Yeah, so yes. Next couple big things. Number one, that I had my third book. Right, we're re-editing the book right now. There's additional content I want to put in it. But what we realized, Jamie, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie series Star Wars. I have.
I think so.
And people have. So I look back and said, what's one of those things that made Star Wars successful, right? And one of the things they did is they always did trilogies, right? First one was 3, then you had the 3 threes, right?
Yeah.
So what I've done and what we're doing is this. I have my first book, Moments Matter, and that's about what happened, the skills that I used about that day. The book I just wrote in re-editing is about my mentor and what he learned in 1929 from his mentor, what he taught me, and how I used that not only that day but become who I've become. And that's the books being reworked. But now we're writing the number 3 trilogy. We're making this a trilogy. It's from Turmoil to Triumph. It's another book that I'm writing right now because I want people to understand this, especially during this time, is I take people from January 16th, 2009. What happened the day after and forward? Because, to be very candid, it all wasn't pixie dust and sunshine. People see me. People think me, hey, that guy did it great, right? In great form. Boy, how a lucky guy. Well, nothing in life is that simple. And there was a roller coaster, which people don't know about. You and I talked about roller coasters in our lives. It was a roller coaster. And I'm actually going to share with people that for the first time the backstory. How do you come out of a plane crash and not only survive, but triumph out of it, but there's those peaks and valleys. And things that people don't even know, even my family may not know, that, people who are going through COVID or going through these social justice challenges, or, they may be so dug in, they can't even talk to their neighbor because one's a Republican, one's a Democrat. And it's like, how do you get through that? So I'm going to share the strategies for the first time when I hit the lows of those times, how I came out of it. And so people can always say, you know what? I'm in that low right now because of COVID. Maybe if I try this, right? Maybe I can get out of this thing. And there's all these things. So this is my next book. So it's going to be a trilogy. It's going to be like, first 3 Star Wars, right, was what happened to Luke and Darth Vader. The next 3 was about how did Luke become Luke, or how did Darth Vader become Darth Vader. And then on the third side is the last Jedi, right? How does he come out of it? And that's what we modeled about this. So this is how we're doing it.
That's so cool. Do you have an
Star Wars? I like Star Wars, all right?
Yeah. Hey, me too. Hey,
yeah.
August 1977. I went and saw Star Wars in Fairbanks, Alaska, where I lived at the time. And my younger brother, who was a bigger Star Wars fan than me, got in trouble. And my parents didn't let him go to the movies. So I went to the movies myself, and I played Space Invaders while I was waiting for the movie to start.
Wow. I love Space Invaders too, man. Galactica and Space. I love Space Invaders, right? Yeah. I mean, it was a fascinating movie, right?
Oh.
And then I was like, so I don't know. I just like, I like things that give you a story that, you know, people got to go through this challenges, right? That's why I like the Marvel movies, right?
Yeah.
Just because all of them had to go through a challenge, right? And because life isn't always like this.
Life is hard.
Life's hard. And you know what? It's up to you and me to share our wisdom of the thing, how we've gone through it to the next generation. Because right now, what I'm finding, I don't know about you, is this generation has never faced anything like this. They were born right during when 9/11 was happening. So they didn't even have a clue on what that was about, right? So this is the first time they ever had to face something that's on a global perspective that's impacting their freedom, right? So, you know, back in the 60s when I grew up, we had the Vietnam War on TV every night, right? And so you got to witness that. You got to witness the riots and things like that. And the Chicago, you know, Democrat convention when people were burning people up. You got to see it. So, you know, we've got references like that we can use to help teach people that tomorrow the sun will come up, right?
Tomorrow.
This too shall pass, right? Tomorrow, right? So it's, I don't know. I can tell I'm pretty passionate about this, and I love it. But I want to teach 1 million people in 10 years, and candidly, I need people's help. So that's the second big thing I'm doing is I'm looking for 10 people right now that want to immerse with me and say, you know what? I'll teach you for 1 year. I'm going to teach you everything that this gentleman Bill taught me and Tony Robbins taught me. I'll teach you. But you got to promise me one thing as part of this agreement. You're going to teach another 10 people.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's if I can do that, I can meet 1 million, right? 10 years.
That's so cool.
That's what my goal is, man.
Now, you worked with Tony Robbins, right?
I did. I was head of security for Tony. I was very honored to be with Tony.
Yeah, because that was really neat because I think it was neat, too, how he came out and kind of supported you after, you know, the plane accident and all that kind of stuff. It was really neat to see him there for you. And
the only person that called me that night in the hospital was Tony, right?
Wow.
So you know, I tell people, and what was part of what I wrote in my last book, in which we're reworking, is, you know, Bill, my mentor, Bill passed away in September of 1997. He was, I think it's 88, 89 when he passed away. And part of the story is he left these notes that he wrote in 1929 to me. And he said, don't let it die with you. And I really believe the reason I didn't die that day now on the plane, it took me a little while to figure it out, was I didn't fulfill that promise. I promised him that I would. And I never fulfilled the promise. So I think that's one of the reasons I didn't die that day. But the second part of that story about Tony is this. You know, later that year, in December that year, is when Tony asked me to be the assistant head of security on his team. So part of the story, and we all have this, but you got to stay awake, is when one mentor passes on, another one will come in if you keep your eyes open. Because when I left Tony, when Tony kicked me out of the nest, said, go, do your thing, get out of here, right? You got my support, go. Then another mentor came in, Don Barden came in from Atlanta, and Don has been shepherding me, right? So we all need somebody like that in our lives. Somebody to give us a little kick in the backside once in a while and say, you know what? Let me give you a different perspective on this. You know, and that's my goals. I want to be able to mentor some people like that and say, you know what? I've had the honor to have people do that for me. I want to be able to offer just like Bill offered it to me. He said, he said, will you let me show you how to be successful? And fortunately for me, in 1984, I said yes. Wow. So
I love it. So how do people get in touch with you? Because I want to share that, and I want people to get that same feeling and have that sense of purpose.
Well, thank you. I guess the best way is, of course, if you go to my website at davesandersonspeaks.com. But I tell you what, Jamie, the best way now is I'm just trying to sort of get focused. I do a lot of my communication on LinkedIn. So I put all my new content on LinkedIn. I preview it out on my LinkedIn every week. So David Sanderson on LinkedIn. I would love people to connect with me that way. And I respond to everybody, and I'll have either my EA or my chief of staff make sure that they feel supported. So those are probably the best ways to get in touch with me.
That's fantastic. Okay, cool. Great. I just wanted to share that because I can't recommend enough. I mean, having you as a friend and just your knowledge and just you're just an awesome guy, truly authentic, very approachable, and it's a shame, but it's very unique to find someone like you that's had the experience and the background that you have, yet still so approachable and still so kind. My word of the year is kindness. And kindness illuminates natural decency, creating neoteric energy with selfless statements. That's what kindness means to me, and you are the very definition in my eyes.
Well, I honor you. When we first met, and by the way, happy birthday to Aaron Walker. It's his birthday today, Jamie. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Oh, it's today.
Happy birthday to Aaron if he's listening to this.
Well, it's his big 602 then.
I think he's around that six number likewise. He's somewhere in that neighborhood. I know that, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood. But no, I appreciate that because I honor what you're doing, and as you know, any way I can help you and jump in and help people get out of their stuck in the door issues, I'll be more than happy to jump in because I think that what you're doing is important for people to have and understand. If they're really going to be able to achieve what they want to achieve, they got to have some help someplace and focus on what's important to you. Let somebody else, like your team, focus on things that, may not be the highest value add for what they can do. They can just get it done. So I honor what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Dave. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap?
Well, I tell people right now, it's like, there's a lot of ways, a lot of means you get attached to what's been going on. But, right now I just tell people, it's all about, people are looking for authenticity and congruency right now. That's what people are looking for the most. And one of the ways, and I just wrote this blog last week about, one of the things that Bill taught me, I'll just leave this quick story. I have a minute to give a quick story.
Yes.
Very quick story. So, one of the things that Bill and I love talking about is World War II because he was there. He lived it, right? He was there during that Depression. Wow. And one of the things we talked about was character. And one of the things he gave me a contrast about character. It really helped illuminate it for me. And it was about three generals. It was about, Patton, MacArthur, and General Eisenhower. And long story short, two of the generals a lot about, Patton and MacArthur. They were in the news all the time. They had a lot of charisma. You didn't hear much about Eisenhower, but look what happened. Patton got demoted. MacArthur got, kicked out of the army for what he did, but Eisenhower became president because charisma can only take you so far. It's the character is what's left over is what really shines for people. So right now I tell people, if you really want to shine for people, show your character, be congruent, be authentic, and you too will be able to be the leader that you need to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Thank you for sharing. I think that's super important. If you don't show people who your true character is, who you truly are, how are you going to surround yourselves with people that share a similar belief system? You're just not. And you're always going to be battling. You're always going to be faking it. And you're never going to live a life that you truly want to live because you're always not yourself.
And that's exactly. And one of the reasons I have a team is one of their goals is to keep those people of high character around me and get rid of the people that don't. And as you know, there's times in our lives, right? There's people get in our lives that don't have high character and they can definitely do some damage to you.
Yes.
So that's one of my chief of staff, Colleen's goal is that. Make sure that we have high level character people around me at all times and make sure that people are not, we'll find someplace else for them.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much, David. Do you have just a moment to stick around and Sure. I can go ahead and wrap up for you?
Please.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining. This has been incredible. Dave Sanderson is the president of Dave Sanderson Speaks International. And we talked today about turning turmoil into triumph. And I cannot recommend enough. Go check him out. You can learn more about Dave by visiting davesandersonspeaks.com. That's his website. Go there, please, today. Or when you hear this, please go visit his site. Dave is extremely active on LinkedIn. So if you go to @hired Dave Sanderson on the LinkedIn, search for Dave Sanderson, you'll be able to find him there. Send him a connection request and try and link up with him there. I cannot recommend enough how awesome he is. He's fantastic. And just the way that he carries himself is a testament to his character and it's something that I look forward and look up to immensely. So I'm very blessed to call him a friend, and I hope you're able to reach out to him so that you can eventually call him a friend as someone that you know as well, because you are going to learn a ton with Dave Sanderson. So again, that's DaveSandersonSpeaks.com. He's also on LinkedIn. For those of you that haven't checked this out, Live with Bottleneck is now on YouTube. We call it BTV, Bottleneck Television. So definitely go check it out. We finally rolled it out. We've got hundreds of videos there. If you want to watch this, watch Dave Sanderson. You can rewatch him there on YouTube. And you can also see a backlog of hundreds of other episodes that we've done. And coming soon, we're going to be speaking with Brenda Batista Molahan, and she's a founder and president of Inspiring Company Culture. We're going to be talking with her Tuesday, March 23rd at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. So please, coming soon to your earbuds. We're excited to talk with her, and she's going to be talking about Culture Eats Strategy with Bottleneck Advisors. That's incredible. I love it. So without any further ado, thank you so much for taking the time. Remember, create your own ripple, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.